now we'll move on to the anime. And just like in previous weeks, I'm gonna start with the one that came out first, and then end with the one that came out the last, in terms of my three that I watch.
Right.
First, Naruto. Well, first of all, it came out with 2 episodes, both filler, so it's not necessarily that important, but it's still, should at least note what happened, even though, simply put, it was a 2-part, I guess you could say, filler arc, if you want to call it that. That basically is an extra story, I believe, during his training to incorporate the wind chakra change into his Rasengan. That basically is used to promote the Naruto game that would be coming out in the following week, which came out today as of the recording date, which was September 16th. And basically had Orochimaru was trying to create something to collect the tail beasts using blueprints of the Geru Mazo statue, and it was thought to have been destroyed. The Akatsuki find the lair that it was destroyed by the accident, and they find this thing that he created, and then fixed it and got it working for them, and used Itachi and told Itachi to take it to Konoha to capture Naruto. But as we all know, he's actually a good guy, so he didn't actually. At first, it seemed like Itachi was going with it and was having the Mecha Naruto, which you find out during their first encounter, or I think their second encounter, that it's Mecha Naruto. To fight, you figure, oh my god, I can't believe Itachi's actually gonna, even though it's a filler, actually having Naruto attempting to kill Naruto. But in the end, in the second episode, when they get to their final fight between Naruto and Mecha Naruto, it is, Naruto is about to lose because Mecha Naruto keeps stealing Tail Beast chakra and keeps weakening him, and Naruto's going, just using his willpower, shows his guts, basically, and then Mecha Naruto's like, your test is over. I was actually reprogrammed by Itachi to pretend to attack you in order to test you. But then, of course, Orochimaru's like, you know what? That failed. Let me pull out my other mecha. Giant Mecha Nine-Tailed Beast. And then, of course, in the end, Mecha Naruto sacrifices himself to destroy Mecha Nine-Tailed Kurama, and they try to make you feel for Mecha Naruto, saying, oh, it's sad, because in a way it's almost like if Naruto died, but we're not that lucky. And so, so in the end, it was honestly ridiculous filler. I mean, it's not really, it's just like many of the other Naruto fillers, it's not really worth watching at all.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I fell asleep watching them.
Wow.
That's how bad it was. I fell asleep while watching them.
Jeez.
So I'm gonna give them a subpar at best. I don't know. Did you watch the episodes?
No, I didn't.
Good for you. Alright, next we're going to cover this week's episode of Fairy Tail. Episode 199, The Grand Banquet, or Grand Ball, I believe it was called. The king invites all the wizard guilds to have a banquet at the Grand Magic Games, or not only to celebrate the conclusion of the Grand Magic Games, but to celebrate their victory over the dragons. Now, while there, Sabretooth decides, to kiss and make up with Yukino, and say, come join us again. But then Fairy Tail, after making amends with Fairy Tail too, Fairy Tail and other wizard guilds start offering Yukina to join their guild, and then they start this argument over who should, and eventually leads to a massive brawl to who's gonna get Yukina, which is, I believe was filler. I don't remember.
Not.
What?
It's not.
I
If
don't
I
remember.
recall
It's been a
correctly.
while. But it seems really ridiculous, especially since, with all the characters in the various guilds.
Yeah,
Of
Lucy's
course, they
better
were also
anyway.
making... What?
Lucy's better anyway.
Yeah. But it was funny because they kept pointing out how, what was it? I can't believe... I don't want... I want to say one name, but I don't know if it's the correct name. The crazed girl with the sword who wanted to kill Jalal from the all-female guild.
Kagura. You're thinking of Kagura.
Okay, I believe that's correct because for some reason I wanted to say Kaguya.
No, it's Kagura.
Okay. She was, they made a big deal because she was wearing a dress as opposed to the thing that she was always wearing. Of course, they joke that because at some point she apparently gets drunk and starts spewing nonsense, but that's just... And then Kana gets into a drinking contest yet again with Brachus thing. I think that's his name. Anyway, so then the White Knight Arcados announces that the king's about to make his appearance, only for Natsu to appear wearing the king's crown and as a prank. Well, the king is for some reason in his pumpkin costume, trying to demand his crown back. Which was funny. Now, I believe this was also... I don't know if this last part was a filler or not, because, again, it's been a while. When, and the, anyway, oh yeah, lost track there for a second. When the king decides to, say, oh, I gotta punish my daughter for her actions behind the eclipse, and ends up saying, you know what, your punishment is to wear my pumpkin mask for a week. So, I think that was filler.
Not sure.
But, whether that's filler or not, what I do know is probably filler, is the fact that everyone else was like, oh, it doesn't look like such a bad thing to wear, and then like so many other people, and then like a bunch of other people start wearing the pumpkin head, and keep ending their sentences with Kabo.
Yeah, that's filler.
But so it was a decent chapter. I mean, it was a cool down chapter after a fight, which a lot of fighting manga do after an arc where they're fighting, which is most of the time for fighting manga.
Yeah, they call it battle shonen.
In terms of an overall episode, it was kind of boring, but in terms of given the fact that it was a cool down episode, it was pretty decent. Somewhat funny, so I would say I would give it a okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, the final one that I watch weekly is the One Piece episode. Now, One Piece is starting to get to it in really, really good point, and as we all know why. But to put it into perspective, this week's episode, which was episode 661, was entitled "The Showdown," all showdown between warlords, Law versus Doflamingo. Now, Luffy has this conversation about Zoro and Kinemon, and then from the shadows, Bellamy begins to approach Luffy, saying, he finally found him, and he's going to attack Luffy on orders of Doflamingo. But then, after remembering all the things that the fact that they kissed and made up. Basically, he decides to not do it, and then out of nowhere, Dillinger comes in saying, "I have orders from Doflamingo to kill you." So let's begin. Then we go back to the Iron Bridge where Law and Doflamingo continue their fight. Obviously, Doflamingo's kicking Law's ass, and Diamante, of course, calls to interrupt the fight and tell Doflamingo about the fact that Violet betrayed them. But Doflamingo was like, "Please, I already knew that." And then tells him to send Lauji to the factory to prevent the Straw Hats from destroying it, and handle the crowd's entertainment by himself, because he then says, "Oh, well, what if you send out all of our guys to take on the Straw Hats at the factory? Who's going to be fighting in the tournament? Because we're all supposed to be fighting in the tournament." And then he's like, "You handle it by yourself." Now, the Marines see the pirates have a meeting via the Den Den Mushi and share their knowledge so far. Wait, hold on. I must be... No, sorry. They see through Luffy and Zoro's disguise and know who they are. And then as they're talking about how we're not going to just go after them. We're going to go and wait for all these criminals to be coming out, and we're going to capture them. And they start listing a bunch of people that we know, that we've heard of. But then they say, "Wait a minute, I've never even heard of these people before." Thus reconfirming that these people who were, top targets for them ended up being pushed off as nobodies because their memory of those people were erased because they were turned into toys. Now the Straw Hat Pirates utilized the Den Den Mushi to have a three-way conversation between the group that's at the Coliseum, the group that's with the Chonchadas, and the group that is on the ship. So that way they can share all their knowledge. Sanji says that him and his team are going to head back to Dressrosa to help because Frankie asked permission to assist the Riku Army Revolution. And then Luffy's like, Frankie does his thing, explains why, cries a little, and then Luffy's like, "Go, I approve, go all out." Then Fujitora arrives at the shores of Dressrosa and sees a big ruckus in the city with explosions and everything and buildings being cut. And that's when Doflamingo shows up having Law beaten on the ground in front of the Coliseum. And it ends with him taking out a pistol and shooting Law 3 times. So the episode I felt was a good episode, especially since the next 2 episodes, even though I know you don't watch a weekly Strider, you should definitely watch the next 2 episodes because you know what's going to happen in the next 2 episodes.
I will. I'll be watching
especially, it. And for any of you who also read the manga, you know what's going to happen next. The one chapter is going to happen in the next episode, and the infamous 710, I believe it was.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. The one that shocked the world and basically put a world in a standstill. That's going to happen in 663. Now, for those of you who are anime-only viewers, the episodes in title aren't 2 great forces face off. Straw Hat and Heavenly Yaksha. And the other one is Luffy Startled, the man who will inherit Ace's will. So, those are going to be very interesting episodes. And for those of you, are definitely going to be interesting ones for people to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
So now...
Alright, let's jump into Sword Art Online 2, Episode 11. So, in this episode, they're finally coming to grips with the fact that, they're pretty similar. And, Kirito, kind of cheers up Shinon first, before they kind of figure out what's going on with Death Gun, and that's that there are two Death Guns. There's one in the game, and there's one in real life who stalks the player that they're going to kill and waits for the right moment. So it's pretty interesting that they have only targeted people who live alone, so that it takes a long time for them to find them, and that they can get past all the security. And so I thought that was good. I like how it's a nice plan, so to speak, and it wasn't completely obvious. So, moving along, the second part is the girls learning, everything that Kirito has been going through. They get caught up, and the guy who hired him, I can't remember his name, he tells Asuna where Kirito is sleeping and being dove into the Gun Gale Online. And so she said she's going to go. And finally, we have the plan, which involves Kirito being the bait, and Shinon being the person to snipe Death Gun. How that's going to work, we don't know. I mean, I'm hoping it works out for the best, because it seems like the first half of Sword Art Online 2 will be Gun Gale Online, and then the second half will be something else, whether it will be going back to Alfheim Online or another MMO. And so we found out now that Kirito is in no danger as of right now, and so he can be the decoy, and he can lure out Death Gun for the sniper to snipe. And so that's basically it. I thought it was a good episode. I like the dynamic between Kirito and Shinon, but I'm getting a bit worried that things are not going to turn out well, in that they may become too close, and that screws up his relationship with Asuna, which I totally see happening, by the way. It's not something I look forward to. But in that episode, you could see him staring at her ass a couple times, and starting to get a bit turned on, I think. Kirito, you got someone much better looking in the real world, so hold your impulses, please, for all of our sakes. So, good episode. Okay, so next we're going to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders, episode 24. Unfortunately, this is the last episode until January. So they're still dealing with the priestess stand, and they start to scuba dive, but not before Joseph instructs them all about how to scuba dive, which I like that scene in particular, because, any scene that makes Joseph look smart in part 3 is good in my books. But the stand had disguised itself as Polnareff's breathing apparatus, and so he gets screwed as soon as the water fills up. But thanks to Hermit Purple and Hierophant Green, they're able to pull out the priestess from Polnareff's throat, which is kind of disgusting, but cool nonetheless. And so they're able to get free and get out there. Now, we find that the priestess is actually a very powerful stand, in that it can transform into pretty much a huge part of the seabed, and it does so and swallows them all up. And we see them all struggling, although at this point I think they should have been going all out to kill the crap out of this thing. But so they try to resort to flattering the priestess because the stand user is a girl, because or so they assume because of the voice, and so they try to flatter her, especially Jotaro, even though he really didn't want to do it because apparently, according to Rose, Jotaro is her type, but she doesn't fall for it and kind of swallows him further, and and so then Jotaro gets crushed by the teeth, or so we think, or not really, because it was kind of obvious. And this part got me because we started to hear his auras from from far away, and it sounded like a fucking car trying to start. I swear. Here, listen to this again.
遠くから聞こえるようなだんだん近づいてくるようなこの声は歯の中から聞こえるぞみんな
It really did. It was awesome. And so finally he breaks through and does what he does best with all the auras he can dish out to destroy the teeth. And this scene was just amazing. I watched this scene about 20 times already. It was awesome. Between the muffled auras sounding like a freaking car trying to start, to the awesomeness of when he actually breaks through and starts to destroy all the teeth. And the Stardust Crusaders theme plays, which is like the same theme that played like when he beat the crap out of Steely Dan. So yeah, this scene pretty much made the episode like just friggin' awesome. So they get out and Jotaro has the line. He's like yada yada, and says that the teeth were definitely hard, but the teeth were kind of like lacking calcium. So they get up, and stand user is likely dead. As far as we've seen, she's kind of just collapsed there, and we don't get much out of it. Polnareff just says like she's like ugly because she lost all her teeth, stuff like that. Okay, so then we get a nice little slideshow with the stands that they have beaten to the opening theme, to Stand Proud, which is, in my opinion, the best opening yet of the three parts. Even though, nothing against Bloody Stream or Sono Chino Sadame, because both of them were also really good. But I think Stand Proud is my favorite so far, especially the sequencing. The sequencing is just fantastic. I hope for the second half of Stardust Crusaders that we get an even better opening, or at least something that's really good. So that's a little off track. So getting back on track, we get one more call from Suzy Q, and we find out that it's very heavily implied that she knows that Joseph and Jotaro are doing something that involves, the Joestar lineage, so to speak. Because I guess technically it's not about Hamon or, that, but it's still about Dio and Jonathan and Holly, who's a Joestar. And so this was also a great scene. I said last week that, the call between Jotaro and Suzy was great, and it was again, where you really, again, you get to see Jotaro's sort of protective side again in that instant. And so, right, so Dio has somebody from the Speedwagon Foundation executed, and, he starts talking about that, and we come to find out that there are more stands that are waiting in Egypt for them, and hopefully, they're gonna be good villains and have good defeats at the end. That's all we can really hope for. And so, like, I'm not a manga reader for JoJo, so I don't know what's happening or what's going to happen rather, and I can't wait till January. So this episode was awesome. It was above and beyond. Definitely, mostly, especially due to Jotaro beating the crap out of the priestess's teeth that were supposedly diamond hardness, which they say that in like every they say that in every anime. It's like, oh, something is as hard as diamonds. You have what in Naruto's Enma staff. You had Diamond Jozu. You get the point. So yeah, part 1 of part 3 was awesome. I enjoy this so much. I'm gonna miss the hell out of it. And so we'll see you guys in January for episode 25. Okay, next up is Hunter x Hunter 2011, episode 147. So, in this episode, we start off with Kite, who has become a girl, and the teddy bear ant, whose name I can't remember, and honestly, I don't give a fuck about. He tells his story about how he killed the person that he's supposedly inhabiting now, and we see a lot of reused animation clips while he talks about the cycle of the Earth, and honestly, I don't give a fuck. I love the series, but I have to be honest, I really could give a fuck about this guy's speech right now. I really don't. So, Kite gives him an ultimatum to serve him, basically, for the rest of his days, so that he can continue to live, and that's enough of that, really. Okay, so then finally Gon comes in, and he apologizes, finally. And they discuss about how he was able to beat Neferpito by doing some drastic measures, which we know was a Nen, command, or the thing that Kurapika used in the Phantom Troop New York New arc, and I can't remember what it's called. It was like the condition, like a Nen condition, where it makes you stronger. But they kind of make up in that way. Gon finally apologized to Kite formally, and it looks like it's accepted. So, moving on, we go to he gets back to the place where he met Jing, and he's not there. And he leaves a note saying that he's waiting on top of the world tree. And so, we have him, Killua, and Aluka travel over to the world tree. And we see quite like a touching farewell between the two of them, because Killua right now is worried about Aluka and protecting her, and stuff like that, so he can't really hang with Gon as much as he used to anymore. So they have a really, really nice farewell in the anime. I was hoping that they would, and they did. And so the episode ends up ends off where Gon's about to climb the world tree, and we see like a bit of a slideshow between Killua and Gon to the ending theme while they were in Great Island. So, I mean, that was a pretty simple episode because it took a lot of time on like those three main points, really. And honestly, like the teddy bear Chimera Ants thingy, his speech, it took so friggin' long. It was like really monotonous and boring after a while. I didn't care for it in the manga either. I really don't care about the guy. I never cared for him from the start, and I didn't care for him here. So I mean, the episode had some great points, if not for that one blemish. You know, it still had great points, but overall, like it was above average episode. So yeah, that's it. Okay, lastly, we're going into Akame ga Kiru. And in this episode, um, we have Stylish, who is attacking the Night Raid base, or the secret base, rather. Same thing, but, you know. And first it happens to Leone, where she's walking, and the guy comes out from like a puddle or the ocean or fuck. And it happens to Leone first, where she goes and looks into like water, and this guy comes out from like the reflection or something of that nature, and seemingly kills her. Which at this point, like knowing that people die in this series, you have to kind of wonder if she was dead or not. So, like, which is a good point of what I think is overall not a good thing. But at least in this case, like, it added some like suspense on whether or not she actually was killed or not. Because in most shonen, you'd be like, ah, no, she's not dead. It's obvious. But moving on, so she gets knocked out, and the attack ensues, and they all get into their own little fights, and the one who really steps up in this episode is Lubbock, or Robic, whatever you want to say. He steps up, and he takes out somebody with his strings, and then he fights two users, and I believe, yeah, they skipped over this in the anime episode, I believe, because in the manga, if I recall correctly, they were actually both Tegu users, or Imperial Arm users, and he ends up beating both of them, but it was all off screen. Maybe that's later, I don't know, spoiler alert. But Akame takes on the one guy, and he's just in awe of Akame's skills, which is not surprising because she's quite powerful at this point. And Tatsumi helps out on the field, and he notices the guy who is using Shayle's Extus, and he can't exactly beat the guy on his own like yet, or at least we didn't really get much of the fight, but it looked like the other guy had the upper hand because of the nature of Extus, which is like a bad matchup for Incurcio. But Mine comes in and beats the crap out of him with just a huge shot, considering that apparently she was in some kind of pinch. I'd say that one is kind of grasping, because I don't think she was in that much of a pinch, really. So, finally, we get the two new members of Night Raid. The first is Susanoo, and we know we kind of understand his abilities. The second girl, I mean, you'll see what she can do later, but as for now, she kind of stays ambiguous to anime-only watchers. But Susanoo is very powerful, but he's actually a Tegu himself. He's like Seiryu's Tegu, similar, but much more badass and more awesome. And he's working for Najenda, or seemingly so. And so he kicks ass, and they take on Stylish, who transforms like every Resident Evil boss. He's basically a Resident Evil villain, or it was definitely like that because he used like zombie like people and stuff like that, and then of course he transformed with his own drug. It's very reminiscent of like Resident Evil to me. So he transforms, but it's in vain because they're able to work together, and Tatsumi and Akame are able to, combine their strengths to get the one hit from the Murasame to consign Dr. Stylish to death. And that's basically the episode in a nutshell. I thought it was a good episode. Oh yeah, Leone's not dead. She takes out the guy who was initially knocked her out. And so, yeah, good. I would say it's a decent to good episode. Fighting was good. I like how Lubbock finally stood up and just kind of stepped it up, is what I want to say, and got stronger with the feats that he has, because he's actually one of the better characters in the series, as you'll come to find out as this goes along. But it took him a while in the beginning to really show why he's cool and why he's actually a good character. So yeah, that's it for Akame ga Kiru, and that'll be it for the anime section.